The Galactic Council chamber was abuzz with its usual symphony of clicks, hums, and murmurs as representatives of countless species prepared for their weekly session. But as soon as Marcus Haynes, humanity's ambassador, strode in carrying a large metal case and a mischievous grin, the room fell silent. Chairwoman Eulachis, with her sleek, reflective carapace glinting under the chamber lights, tilted her head. Her voice, resonant and commanding, broke the stillness. "Ambassador Haynes, you have requested the Council's attention for what you have called a cultural exchange. What precisely do you intend to share with us today?" Marcus set the case down on the central table and flipped it open. Inside was a neatly arranged tray of golden, crispy chicken wings and an ominous lineup of sauce bottles, each one more vibrantly threatening than the last. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice carrying a note of showmanship. "Today, I bring you more than food. I bring you an experience, a challenge, a time-honored human tradition that tests courage, fortitude, and camaraderie. I call it the Hot Wings Challenge." Drake, the Volmarian ambassador, rose from his seat, his copper-scaled frills flaring in disdain. "This is absurd. Volmarians have consumed fiery capsaicin-based dishes for millennia. Your so-called spicy challenge will likely taste bland to us." "Maybe," Marcus replied, his grin widening, "but this isn't just about spice. It's about endurance. It's about facing the heat and pushing through one wing after another until the last one either breaks you or it doesn't." Vrint, a gelatinous delegate whose translucent form quivered faintly, emitted a bubbling sound. "Pain as a form of sustenance is inefficient and illogical." "Pain?" Marcus said, feigning offense. No, it's not pain. It's the thrill of discovery, the triumph of resilience. It's fun." He turned to Eulachis. "Madam Chairwoman, might I ask who among you is brave enough to participate?" Eulachis' eye stalks narrowed as the room erupted into murmurs. "Do you truly believe any of us would shy away from such a simplistic test?" Drake stepped forward, his voice sharp. "I will participate. I will demonstrate the superiority of Volmarian tolerance." Velassis raised a tentacle. "As will I. I see no reason to let this human tradition pass untested." Vrint made a noise resembling a sigh. "If only to expose the futility of this endeavor, I will join." One by one, other representatives joined in, unwilling to appear less resilient than their peers. Marcus nodded approvingly. "Fantastic. Let's begin." The station's auxiliary dining chamber was converted into an impromptu arena. Plates of wings, customized for each species, lined a long table, and the participants took their seats amid an air of anticipation. Marcus stood at the head of the table, holding the first sauce aloft. "This," he announced, "is classic hot sauce, tangy, mild, and an easy introduction to what's coming." Marcus took the first bite, smiling confidently. "Delicious, right?" The others followed suit. Eulachis clicked her beak thoughtfully. "Mild, but flavorful." Drake grunted. "Pleasant, though hardly noteworthy." Vrint absorbed the wing into their gelatinous form without comment, their translucent body glowing faintly as they processed it. The second sauce, Los Calientes, introduced a smoky sweetness with a noticeable kick. Eulachis' tentacles shifted slightly as she sampled it. Drake's frills twitched once but settled quickly. By the third wing, coated in Eye of the Dragon, the room began to shift. Marcus's forehead glistened faintly with sweat, Vrint emitted a faint hissing sound, and Eulachis' tentacles twitched more frequently. Drake's scales took on a subtle sheen, signaling increased circulation, a Volmarian sign of stress. Marcus grinned, his voice steady despite the heat. "Now we're getting somewhere." The fourth sauce, Cosmic Reaper's Kiss, was where the real chaos began. Marcus bit into his wing and immediately exhaled sharply. "Okay, yep, that's hot." Eulachis froze mid-bite, her eye stalks swiveling erratically. This is excessive." Drake, his copper scales now tinged with purple, set his wing down and inhaled deeply, small puffs of flame escaping his nostrils. "What chemical weapon is this?" Vrint quivered violently. their normally serene form emitting sporadic pops and sizzles. "I regret everything." Marcus wiped his face with the back of his hand, his grin now strained. One more to go. The final sauce, the last dab, was introduced with dramatic flair. Marcus held the bottle high, shaking it ominously. "Tradition dictates we add an extra dab of this one." Olaxis glared at him. "Your traditions are absurd." Marcus shrugged. "That's Earth for you." The participants coated their final wings and, with varying degrees of hesitation, took their bites. Marcus, true to form, went first. His face immediately turned bright red as he gasped for air, but he held his ground. "Oh, yeah, that's the stuff." Olaxis let out a piercing shriek, her tentacles thrashing wildly. Why would anyone consume this voluntarily? Drake, after swallowing the wing whole, collapsed onto the table, his scales now a deep violet. "Humans are insane," he rasped, tiny flames flickering at the corners of his mouth. Slavering didn't even attempt the final bite, retreating into a corner of the room to quiver quietly. Marcus staggered to his feet, tears streaming down his face. And that is why humans are the kings of spice. As the chaos reached its peak, attendants hurried in with trays of glasses filled with a cool, creamy liquid. Marcus, still red-faced but grinning, held one up. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I present humanity's secret weapon, milk. Trust me, it's your salvation." Olaxis hesitated, but after a moment she accepted a glass and drank deeply. Her eye stalks relaxed and her tentacles unfurled as the milk worked its magic. "Remarkable! The burning subsides." Drake drained his glass in a single gulp, a low growl of relief escaping him. "It is effective." Vrent absorbed an entire pitcher, their bodies shimmering with newfound tranquility. As the participants recovered, the mood in the room began to lighten. Eulaxis clicked her beak once, a Sylaxian sign of reluctant approval. "Your traditions are reckless, Ambassador Haynes, but I must admit, they are memorable." Marcus grinned, raising his glass. "To resilience, camaraderie, and good old-fashioned fun." The participants clinked their glasses together, a small but significant gesture of unity. For a brief moment, the Galactic Council was less a collection of disparate species and more a group of individuals brought together by a shared experience, no matter how absurd. Marcus leaned back, his smile widening. Humanity once again had made its mark, this time in a blaze of glory and a wave of milk. The next day, the Galactic Council was abuzz with reactions to the Hot Wings Challenge. Delegates from across the galaxy swapped stories of the previous evening's fiery ordeal in hushed tones. Some shared grudging admiration for humanity's ability to endure such extremes, while others expressed disbelief at the sheer recklessness of it all. Marcus Haynes, however, was walking through the station corridors like a man on top of the world. He was still basking in the glory of the night before, grinning as he passed delegates who gave him cautious nods, or in some cases wide berths. As he rounded the corner toward the council chamber, he was intercepted by Chairwoman Ulaxis, her eye stalks fixed squarely on him. She moved with a calculated grace, but her tentacles coiled just enough to betray her agitation. "Ambassador Haynes," she said, her voice as sharp as ever. "A word." Marcus's grin faltered slightly. "Morning, Madam Chairwoman. What's on your mind?" Ulaxis gestured for him to follow her to a nearby alcove. Once they were out of earshot, she clicked her beak softly. "Your Hot Wings Challenge has left ripples." "Ripples?" Marcus asked, feigning innocence. Ulaxis narrowed her eye stalks. Several delegates spent the night recovering from what they have referred to as a human firestorm. While the milk you provided was effective, it has not erased the memory of the discomfort. Marcus chuckled nervously. "Well, that's kind of the point. It's an experience." "Indeed," Ulaxis replied, her tone dripping with skepticism. "And now, it seems you have set a precedent. There is a proposal circulating among the council, a challenge of galactic cuisine. Each species will present a dish that represents their culinary traditions. You, Ambassador, are expected to participate. Marcus raised an eyebrow. A galactic cook-off? Essentially, Alaxis said. However, after last night's spectacle, there is some skepticism about whether humanity can contribute something meaningful without setting anyone on fire. Meaningful, huh? Marcus rubbed his chin, a mischievous glint in his eye. Challenge accepted. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. The Galactic Council's auxiliary chamber was transformed into a culinary showcase, with stations for each species to display their dishes. Delegates bustled about, preparing ingredients and presenting their cultural heritage with pride. The Volmarians, led by Drake, unveiled a dish of roasted tubers, coated in a glaze that glowed faintly in the dim light. The Celebikis offered a shimmering soup made from bioluminescent algae, its colors shifting as it was stirred. The Vrint contributed a wobbly, gelatinous mass that pulsed faintly, an unsettling but oddly fascinating creation. Meanwhile, Marcus's corner was bustling with the arrival of ingredients from Earth. A shipment of familiar items had been rushed to the station. Blocks of cheddar cheese, boxes of macaroni, and baskets of fresh chicken tenders. When the day of the event arrived, Marcus stood proudly behind his station, his display unassuming but inviting. A large tray of mac and cheese bubbled golden under a warming lamp, while a basket of crispy chicken tenders sat nearby, accompanied by an array of dipping sauces. As the judges made their rounds, the atmosphere was a mix of anticipation and skepticism. Drake, whose glowing tuber dish had already earned nods of approval, watched Marcus's station with thinly veiled disdain. When Eulaxis and the other judges arrived at Marcus's table, the chairwoman regarded the spread with her usual measured gaze. I'm certain the answer would come to Marcus with almost exactly the right measure, and by that time, you and I would be as friends. This is your contribution, Ambassador. It appears simple. Simple doesn't mean uninspired, Marcus said with a grin. Mac and cheese, chicken tenders, and a variety of dipping sauces. It's comfort food, something that warms the soul. Eulaxis clicked her beak thoughtfully before picking up a forkful of mac and cheese. Drake hesitated, but ultimately followed suit, while Vrint absorbed a small sample into their gelatinous form. The reactions were immediate. Yalix's eye stalks widened slightly, her tentacles unfurling in what Marcus recognized as approval. This is unexpectedly satisfying. Drake, chewing thoughtfully, finally muttered, It is adequate. Vrint, whose gelatinous body shimmered faintly, emitted a harmonious hum. As word spread, delegates began to gather around Marcus's station, eager to sample the unassuming dish that had garnered such positive reactions. The simplicity of Earth's comfort food became a hit, with several representatives returning for second helpings. By the end of the event, Marcus's table was empty, and his spirits were high. Eulaxis approached him as the chamber emptied, her tone begrudgingly respectful. Ambassador Haynes, she said, you have surprised us once again. Your dish has reminded the Council that sometimes simplicity carries the strongest message. Marcus smiled. I'm glad you liked it. And hey, next time, maybe we'll introduce you to Earth desserts. Ever heard of brownies? Olasix tilted her head. I suspect you will find a way to turn even those into a challenge. Probably, Marcus admitted with a laugh. As the Council dispersed, Marcus couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. Humanity had once again left its mark, not with fire this time, but with something far more enduring, the universal language of food. The days following the culinary showcase brought a surprising shift in the Galactic Council's dynamic. For the first time, discussions that usually revolved around trade disputes or territorial treaties were punctuated by casual conversations about flavor profiles, cooking techniques, and even requests for recipes. Humanity's mac and cheese had become a minor phenomenon, sparking a flurry of interest in Earth's culinary traditions. Marcus Haynes found himself busier than ever. Delegates approached him in the corridors, asking for tips on preparing human dishes, while others sent curious inquiries about Earth's agriculture. Even Drake, who had mocked the simplicity of Marcus's contribution, had grudgingly admitted to wanting the mac and cheese recipe. It was during one such exchange, this time with a particularly enthusiastic Zarlaki-eyed delegate, eager to understand the concept of deep frying, that Marcus was interrupted by an urgent message from the Sylvaxian chairwoman herself. "Ambassador Haynes," Alexis's voice came through his communicator, calm but firm. "Report to the council chamber immediately. We have received a situation report that requires your expertise." Marcus frowned. "My expertise? What's going on?" "You'll be briefed upon arrival," Eulaxis replied curtly. Minutes later, Marcus strode into the chamber, where Eulaxis and several senior delegates were already gathered. A holographic projection floated above the central table, displaying a derelict starship drifting in the void of space. "This," Alexis began, gesturing to the image, "is the source of a distress signal picked up on the outer fringes of our territory. The ship appears to have been abandoned for centuries, and its origin does not match any known species within the Galactic Alliance." Marcus leaned closer, studying the details of the ship. Its design was angular and alien, its surface pitted and worn by time. "Looks ancient. Any idea who built it?" Drake, who stood nearby, his frills twitching with curiosity, spoke up. "Not yet. Our scans indicate that the ship contains a sealed cargo bay. Its contents remain intact, and the markings suggest provisions of some kind." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Provisions? You mean food?" "Possibly," Eulaxis replied. "Given humanity's, particular relationship with culinary artifacts, we believe your perspective might prove useful. If these provisions are edible, they could offer insights into a previously unknown culture." Marcus smirked. "Let me guess. You want me to taste test alien food?" Alexis's eye stalks swiveled toward him, unamused. "We would prefer you assess the nature of the cargo before any consumption occurs. Your tendency toward impulsivity is well documented, Ambassador." "Not it," Marcus said, though the glint in his eye suggested otherwise. The exploratory vessel that carried Marcus and the recovery team to the derelict ship was sleek and efficient, its design optimized for quick retrieval missions. As they approached the ancient freighter, its imposing frame loomed larger, illuminated by the soft glow of a nearby nebula. Inside, the air was stale, and the corridors were eerily silent. The recovery team moved cautiously, scanning for hazards as they made their way to the sealed cargo bay. When they arrived, Marcus found himself staring at a reinforced container adorned with intricate, unfamiliar markings. The team's linguists worked quickly, deciphering enough of the script to determine that the container held provisions preserved for longevity. "Well," Marcus said, stepping forward, "only one way to find out what we've got." The container hissed as its seals released, revealing rows of translucent capsules filled with a shimmering golden substance. Each capsule was intricately designed, with swirling patterns etched into its surface. One of the recovery techs handed a capsule to Marcus. "What do you think?" Marcus turned it over in his hands, marveling at the craftsmanship. "It's beautiful. Almost looks ceremonial." Drake, who had insisted on joining the mission, folded his arms, "And yet we have no idea if it is edible or safe." Marcus popped the capsule's seal, releasing a faint, aromatic vapor that filled the room. He took a cautious sniff, then a small taste. The flavor was unlike anything he had ever experienced, sweet, savory, and with a subtle warmth that lingered pleasantly. His eyes widened. "This is incredible!" Drake stepped closer, his frills flaring in alarm. "Are all humans this reckless?" Marcus grinned, licking his lips. "You'll understand once you try it." The team collected samples and returned to the council station, where the capsules were analyzed thoroughly. After confirming their safety, Marcus presented the discovery at the next council session, describing the taste in glowing detail. When the capsules were distributed for sampling, the chamber erupted with murmurs of delight. Even Eulaxis, who had approached the capsule with her usual skepticism, clicked her beak approvingly after her first taste. "This," she said, her tone softer than usual, "is extraordinary." Marcus nodded. "It's more than food, it's a message, a gift maybe. Whoever left these behind wanted to share something meaningful." The room fell silent as the delegates considered his words, the gravity of the discovery settling over them. Then, in a rare moment of unity, the council raised their capsules in a toast, each delegate acknowledging the unknown culture that had left such a profound mark on the stars. As the session concluded, Drake approached Marcus, his expression unusually thoughtful. "You continue to surprise me, Haynes. Humanity's recklessness seems to yield unexpected results." "Thanks, Drake," Marcus said. "Now what do you say we mix one of these capsules with some earth spices? I've got a sauce that'll knock your frills off." Drake groaned, but there was a glint of amusement in his eyes. Marcus walked away with a spring in his step, knowing that once again, humanity had turned the improbable into the unforgettable. But the discovery of the alien capsules ignited a wave of curiosity and collaboration across the Galactic Council. Delegates who had once clashed over territorial disputes were now united in a collective effort to decipher the origins and significance of the freighter's cargo. For the first time in recent memory, the chamber felt alive with excitement. Marcus Haynes found himself at the center of the buzz, his role as the ambassador of Earth's culinary culture elevating him to an unexpected level of prominence. Every corridor he walked seemed to echo with questions. How do humans interpret such flavors? Could these capsules be paired with other ingredients? Do you think the creators of this food were as chaotic as your species? Marcus's answers ranged from sincere to cheeky, depending on the mood of his questioner. But as the days passed, one inquiry began to surface more frequently. What do we do next? It was Eulaxis who called the council to order to address that very question. The chamber hummed with anticipation as the chairwoman rose, her eye stalks sweeping the assembly. "Fellow delegates," she began, her voice commanding but tinged with something that might have been excitement, "we stand on the cusp of a significant discovery. These capsules represent not only an unfamiliar flavor, but the possibility of a deeper connection to a culture we have yet to understand. It is our duty to honor this gift by uncovering its origins." Drake stood, his frills flaring in agreement. "If this freighter is an artifact of a long-lost species, then tracing its journey could lead us to knowledge, perhaps even allies. But this will require a coordinated effort." Werlix nodded. "To that end, I propose an expedition to the region where the freighter was found. We will trace its path, investigate any anomalies, and, if we are fortunate, discover more of this species' legacy." The room erupted in murmurs of approval, but all eyes eventually turned to Marcus, who had remained uncharacteristically quiet. He leaned back in his seat, arms crossed, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Well," Eulaxis asked, "Ambassador Haynes, will Earth contribute to this endeavor?" Marcus grinned. "Madam Chairwoman, you had me at expedition." The exploratory fleet that assembled for the mission was one of the most diverse in the Council's history. Ships of varying sizes and designs joined the effort, each carrying representatives from a dozen species. Marcus found himself aboard the Ecliptica, a Selvaxian vessel equipped with cutting-edge scanning technology and an impressive culinary lab, which Marcus immediately claimed as his domain. Their journey led them deeper into uncharted space, past shimmering nebulae and through regions of faintly glowing dark matter. Along the way, they encountered fragments of debris, pieces of other freighters, similarly aged but far more degraded. Each fragment provided clues, fragments of star maps, logs written in the alien language, and, most intriguingly, more food capsules. The capsules varied in flavor and complexity, from a tangy, citrus-like gel to a smoky, savory paste that seemed to induce a mild, euphoric sensation. Marcus couldn't help but experiment, pairing the capsules with Earth ingredients and sharing his creations with the crew. One night, as the fleet passed through the shimmering currents of a solar wind, Marcus called Drake, Eulaxis, and Brint to the lab for an impromptu taste test. "This better not involve fire," Drake grumbled as he entered. Marcus gestured grandly to the table where he had prepared a series of dishes. No fire this time, I promise. Just a fusion of cultures. I give you mac and cheese with a twist. Alexis examined the dish suspiciously. A twist? Marcus nodded. Each portion is infused with a different alien capsule. One's sweet, one's smoky, and one's got a kick of heat. Vrint quivered faintly. You cannot resist introducing heat, can you? It's mild, Marcus protested. I swear! The three delegates hesitated, then sampled the dishes. The room fell silent as they ate, their expressions shifting from skepticism to surprise. This is... Ulaxis clicked her beak. Remarkable. Drake chewed thoughtfully, his frills relaxed. A unique blend. It honors the original flavors while adding something distinctly human. Vrint let out a harmonious hum, acceptable if overly complex. Marcus grinned. I'll take it. After weeks of investigation, the fleet finally reached the end of the freighter's trail, a planet orbiting a dim red star. The surface was barren, but signs of ancient structures dotted the landscape. The team descended cautiously, scanning for any signs of activity. In the ruins of what appeared to be a storage facility, they found their answer. A series of carvings, preserved beneath layers of sediment, depicted the beings who had created the capsules. They were tall, slender creatures with elongated limbs and glowing patterns across their bodies. The carvings showed scenes of communal feasts, their glowing food central to the gatherings. It's a celebration, Marcus said, his voice filled with awe. Their food wasn't just sustenance, it was their way of coming together. Ulaxis ran a tentacle over one of the carvings. Perhaps they understood something we are only beginning to grasp. Drake nodded. That food is a bridge, a connection that transcends language and species. As the team gathered samples and documented their findings, Marcus couldn't help but feel a profound sense of gratitude. The journey had started with a tray of chicken wings and a reckless challenge, but it had led to something far greater, a reminder that even in the vastness of space, the simplest joys could unite the most disparate of beings. Back aboard the Ecliptica, Marcus stood at the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. Ulaxis approached, silently, her reflective carapace catching the starlight. Ambassador Haynes, she said, her tone unusually soft. You have a knack for turning chaos into opportunity. Humanity's contributions have been unexpected, but invaluable. Marcus chuckled. I'll take that as a compliment. She tilted her eye stalks. As you should. Now tell me more about these Earth desserts you mentioned. Marcus grinned. Madam Chairwoman, you're going to love brownies. The stars outside shimmered as the fleet prepared to return, carrying with them the flavors of a forgotten civilization and the bonds forged in their discovery.